A new report suggests that migrants coming to the United States could help the country's financial situation. Analysis from the Congressional Budget Office found an increase in immigration could reduce the country's federal deficit by nearly $900 billion over the next decade. That's thanks in part to immigrants paying taxes and contributing to the economy. This comes as migrant crossings continue to drop. Internal numbers from the Homeland Security Department show July is on track to see some 60,000 migrant apprehensions, down from more than 83,000 in June. And the average number of daily crossings so far this month is 1,800. That's near the 1,500 number that would lift the Biden administration's partial ban on asylum claims. CBS News immigration and politics reporter Camilo Montoya-Galvez joins us now to explain what all those numbers mean. Camilo, which immigrants did the CBO report look at, and what was the main takeaway about how they benefit the economy?
Hi, John. The Congressional Budget Office looked at three main categories of immigrants. The first category are migrants who are crossing the U.S.-Mexico border illegally or at ports of entry with the government's permission. It also looked at migrants who have entered the country surreptitiously and evaded apprehension but are still here. They essentially snuck into the country. And then the last category are immigrants who came here on visas but overstayed them and are now here in an undocumented status. And the main takeaway from this report is that these immigrants are giving a lot more to the U.S. economy by paying taxes, increasing tax revenue, and participating in the economy as consumers than they are taking out of the economy by using public benefits, for example, John, and other expenses associated with them being here in the U.S. And this report estimates that there will be an increase in immigration, a continued increase in immigration, a net increase of 8.7 million immigrants and their children over the next 10 years. And when it analyzed, again, their tax revenues, their participation in the U.S. economy versus the use of public benefits and other expenses, it did find that these immigrants during this time period of 10 years will reduce the federal deficit by $897 billion with the B. So this is obviously a huge number, and that also reinforces other studies that have shown, John, that immigration, both illegal and legal, are contributing to the U.S. economy and are often beneficial to economic growth here in the U.S. There are obviously always caveats to that point, but that is the general consensus that we have found in these studies. That same office, the Congressional Budget Office, earlier this year, John, found that immigration has been one of the key reasons behind the U.S. ability to recover much more rapidly from the pandemic economically than other countries.
Were there any expenses, Camilo, that weren't included in calculating the benefit of immigrants in this report?
Yes. Yes, the report, John, importantly did not include what we call discretionary spending by the federal government. That is the appropriations that Congress allocates for example, the Department of Homeland Security or the Department of Health and Human Services, the two main agencies that deal with immigrants coming to the border. And obviously, the spending from these agencies tends to increase, John, when there's a spike in illegal crossings. So we have to take that into account when reading this report and analyzing it. But it is also important to note that one of the reasons that the report did not include the spending is because Congress, as you know, always changes its mind on how much money to allocate for different functions in the U.S. immigration system. And there's also the question of state and local expenses. This report took a federal look at this issue, but as you know, while immigrants also contribute to state and local economies, these states and localities also spend money on immigrants. And one example is the school system. Schools obviously have to absorb migrant children or the children of immigrants in their systems and also provide them ESL classes and the like for them to fully integrate into American society.
And Camilo, before I let you go, give me the update on these recent numbers about migrant crossing. They're now low enough, the number of migrant crossings by month, that they're bumping up or about to that cap as a part of President Biden's asylum crackdown. So what has to happen? What has to happen first, and then what would it look like if that partial cap gets lifted?
Well, look, John, illegal crossings along the U.S.-Mexico border had been going down for 5 months straight since early March. But that drop has become more pronounced after President Biden issued that executive action you just underscored that is making most migrants now ineligible for asylum and eligible to be deported much more quickly to Mexico or to their home countries. But that asylum crackdown is now conditioned on the number of crossings on a weekly average being above 1,500. But the daily average of illegal crossings now, John, is very close to that threshold. It is around 1,600 and 1,700 per day. And so if that scenario occurs, the number 1,500 is reached, then the Department of Homeland Security, John, would have to lift this asylum regulation. But it is important to note that there is another asylum regulation that also disqualifies migrants from asylum from 2023 that would still remain in place, and that affects people who are not Mexican and who are crossing Mexico and not seeking asylum there. So those asylum restrictions would continue to be in place, John.
Camilo Montoya-Galvez, thank you very much, Camilo.